I think it's really interesting when you realize the whole purpose of why you're supposed to be on this planet. You reincarnated here for a purpose. You decided to come here and clear all the karma on your bloodline, clear all the trauma on your bloodline, and you told Source, I'm going to come to Earth and reincarnate and clear all the junk out of the bloodline, all the abuse, all the trauma, all the violence. So from now on, my bloodline will be better than it was before because there's a lot of unresolved trauma, a lot of curses that need to be broken, a lot of stuff that needed to be resolved. And when you chose all this, it wasn't going to be easy. You didn't really want it to be easy. You came here to choose. All the ancestors before you didn't do what they were supposed to because it's really difficult to change 100 years or 1,000 years of trauma. So you decided, I want to come to Earth and I want to change the dynamic of my bloodline because nobody before me decided to do this. So choosing to be a chosen one isn't all glamorous and pretty and fun all the time because you have to get down and dirty in the trenches and clean and clear and change everything because you know that you are strong enough to endure what you're supposed to endure. You know that when you came here, that you were supposed to come here and endure the pain and the trauma and everything. You knew that was your task to come here. And you knew that when you were a little kid that you were different and you never fit in. You never fit in with anybody. When you were little, you tried to make friends and everybody's looked at you sideways or looked at you weird because you had different ideas, you had a different way of thinking, you had a different way of processing things. And they would always look at you weird. And you thought it was normal. And the older you got, the more you realized the whole illusion of what was going around you. That certain situations happened. And you're like, this isn't right. But you thought it was right because your caregiver showed you that this is the way it's supposed to be. So you thought about it and you're like, some of this stuff doesn't add up. This doesn't add up. The way they're talking and then the energy behind it, it's not connecting. Like all the dots are not connecting. So you're like, what am I supposed to do? Like the things that they're telling me are different than what their actions are behind it. And you wanted to give up because you're so irritated with certain things in your life because your life wasn't easy and you chose this. You chose not to have an easy life. You chose to come here learn the karmic lessons, learn um, the experiences that you needed to. And you chose all this because you knew deep in your fiber of your being, in your, let's say, soul, that you needed to make a difference. You needed to do something different. You needed to come here and make a difference. And it wasn't easy. There's times where you wanted to just give up and just not exist anymore. But a part of you said, I can't give up, because as difficult as it is, or as hard as the situation that I'm in right now, there's a reason behind it. There's a karmic reason behind it. There's a cosmic reason behind it. It just makes sense. Like, from a logical point of view, it doesn't make sense. But from a spiritual point of view, or from a spiritual knowing or intuition, you know that you're doing what you're supposed to. And you've lived your life with that spiritual knowing telling you, almost like a compass, telling you when to turn left, or when to go north, or when to go south, or like it's telling you how to do things. And sometimes it was difficult to go through certain challenges, because when you look back when you look back at your life, you were in situations where you're like, this doesn't make sense why I'm here, or why I'm in this spot. And you've had a near death experience multiple times, but that's part of the soul contract, because you came here to learn, to conquer, to endure the human experience from a soul level, that you need to experience pain, you need to experience loss, you need to experience divorce, you need to experience domestic violence, you need to experience all these things. And then when you break free from it and you're a whole, like, different person, like, what's around you looks the same, but that's just a hologram of what is going on internally. So most of this is happening internally, and you can't see that because you're only seeing what the physical world is showing you, even though you know what's happening or what's lining up in the spiritual life, or season, whatever you want to call it. And there's times where you're just like, I want to throw the towel in. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to experience this anymore. I don't want to be here. But that's the time where you have to pluck up the courage and say, I want to be different. I want to do what I'm supposed to. I want to protect the people that I am supposed to, because when I was little, I didn't get to be protected. My so-called caregivers didn't protect me. They didn't help me in certain situations. So instead of being angry and hurt and numb and um, callous to the situations, I choose to do the opposite. So whatever happened to me, getting yelled at or getting hit or having situations where you're like, this doesn't feel right, I need to look over my shoulder, I don't feel safe, like living your life with that mentality as a little kid makes it really hard to settle into situations or seasons. And you came up with this coping mechanism. And the older you get, you're like, this isn't working. um, I need to do something different. I need to be somebody different. And just realizing what happened to you, when it happened to you, and just saying, okay, this is what happened to my inner child. This is why it happened. Um, I'm not always responsible to what's happening to me. This is how I feel about it, and this is what I'm going to do about it. And processing it, and sometimes just being just like, how am I present in the moment when this is just icky? And then time goes by, you get a little older, and a certain situation happens, and you're like, what am I supposed to do? Like, who am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? Because a part of what you were shown was it fragmented your identity. And then you went and got some energy healing, and you met with a therapist, and you did all these things. So you're a different person now than you were back then. But there's still fragments of that, like thinking patterns or whatever that you were shown. And now you see the illusion or the hologram of what's going around you. And you're trying to process everything that's going on, and you're like, this doesn't make sense, because your brain is telling you one thing, and then your intuition is telling you something different, even though you know something is off. Because you shouldn't get yelled at for being curious and wanting to learn and just wanting to process things and just learning things differently. And then you get yelled at because you're not understanding what's getting taught in that situation. And but then the older you get, the more you realize why your caregiver did or is doing what they did. Why? It makes sense now. Because they were never shown as a little kid how to process things. So their first reaction is to get really angry and just yell, because they think that fixes everything. And then just learning how to process why that whole dynamic happens and why things are playing out the way they need to. And then you get to a point where you're like, this makes sense, that I can tolerate this for so long, and now I'm just going to throw the towel in and say, this is not how it's supposed to be. It needs to be different.